Welcome to the introduction to the manifestation formula. Hi, I'm Rich Spitzer. I'm the creator of the manifestation formula program and the author of the book by the same name. If you found this video, it's because you were searching for what I started to 15 years ago, some ideas, some support and guidance about how to use positive psychology, the law of attraction, and other similar concepts to achieve my goals. I discovered there are a lot of different words for the same basic concept. I want to try and transform my thoughts into successful outcomes. This two-part introduction will take you through three different perspectives of what I did and how I'm using it, I think, fairly successfully today. I'll tell you why I started my program and how I try to implement many of the conventional practices. Eventually, I found that although there was lots of wisdom out there and many recommendations, they ultimately did not convince me or work for me the way I had hoped. And last, in the second section, I'll take you through what I discovered through research, trial and error, and observing the world around me. And if my manifestation program worked for me, it should work for you too. So part one will take you through all the years of my searching and my trial of books, CDs, and seminars. I started out wanting to believe what was already out there, but ultimately I was either too rigid or too naive or too lazy. I just could not always make the connection between what seemed to be great wisdom and practical applications. But I clearly had a sense that there was fundamental truth, but they weren't always taking these truths and putting it into a practical approach for our modern lives today. Let me start with telling you about how it is working for me. That's one of the obvious questions for most people. How is it working for you? I certainly had a lot of ambitions, and I didn't really know how things were going to play out. But here's where I am today. Even though I kicked around the research and the investigations and the books for 12 years, it was really only 3 years ago I began to put these plans into action. Starting at the end of 2017, I have now published 3 books, and the 4th is in the works, and the 5th is on the drawing boards. I've got my website up. I have this program out there. I found an international organization which I joined as a volunteer, and now I'm on the board of directors, part of the development group for personal transformation. But even though I've begun to accomplish many of the ideas I've had, I'm not done. Because the more you achieve, the more you learn, the more opportunities you see of where else you can go. My first goal was, can I transform my 50-year business life from a research consultant into an eclectic writer and amateur philosopher? To my own satisfaction, the answer is yes. Now, if I had been a little more forward thinking, I might have tried to manifest a million book bestseller, but back then my goals were modest. I just wanted to be able to do it. But one thing I learned, and you should always keep in mind, that lots of your successes start small. They manifest in ways perhaps you didn't expect, but you can still build on every little success because each one is also a learning experience and evidence that whatever thoughts and ideas and creative goals you have, there are often realistic opportunities to transform them into reality. As I was writing the book, and certainly after it was published, people asked me, how did I get the idea? What did I do? What obstacles and challenges did I encounter, and how did I deal with it? And I realized from my own experience of reading books, I can learn what the person wrote, but I didn't really understand what was their motivation, what were they feeling. So in the words of one person, can you bring the manifestation formula to life? So my answer is yes, I can try to do that. I learned a lot through listening to podcasts that even though a writer wrote a great book, once they explained what they did and how they did it, it changed my understanding. It actually enhanced it, and it helped me relate what they did to my own life. So I can't really tell you what I think you should do because I don't know you personally. I can give you my suggestions. I can tell you what I did and how I applied it. But it comes down to a simple observation of what I learned. If it worked for me, an ordinary person, family, job, education, responsibilities, if I did it, if I found this successful path, if I found the time to do it, I believe it can work for you too. Another obvious question I get from people is, why should I listen to you? What have you learned that more famous people have not been able to discover? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background in research and analysis, which certainly was very helpful in doing this investigation and developing the program. I also needed to convince myself that I could do it. And I realized as I did more and more research that every famous person, every discoverer of anything modest or great was at one time a person who was not famous and great. They had not discovered it yet. But they had an idea, they had persistence, they got help, they got support, and they persisted, and many succeeded. And that persistence, that belief in what they were doing, is actually one of the foundations of the Manifestation Formula program. You have to know what you want to do, you have to believe it, and you have to have the persistence and discipline to stick with it. As I'm putting together this program in the fall of 2020, I'm 76 years old. My background, over 50 years, was in communications and trend, marketing, behavioral research. And over my career, working with hundreds of other people, one of the things I believe helped me in my career was that I actually paid attention to what I was doing in many cases. Now, every study on cereal or pet food wasn't really that interesting, but still I encountered hundreds of studies from hundreds of clients that had fascinating aspects about planning for the future, analyzing the present, developing new markets. And by paying attention to information influences, cause and effect, I was able to transfer some of those skills into developing the manifestation formula. I retired in 2000. I was 55. I was executive vice president and partner in one of the world's largest global research firms. One of the reasons I retired, I was tired of traveling around the world, and I realized I had a great opportunity, a luxury of being able to pursue a new life, new interests. I started a business shortly after I retired about macro trend research. I was applying what I knew how to do, but after a few years, I realized my heart was not in it. But I kept doing it for 12 years. It never became as successful as I liked because my mind was often elsewhere. My real interest was in, yes, still doing research and writing and philosophy, but I was more interested now about why are things the way they are? How are things going to change in the future? What can I do to achieve those changes? I had the ideas, but the implementation were very intimidating ideas. That's what got me into trying all the conventional self-help practices, but they did not work for me. So eventually I had the epiphany. I was going to take what I knew how to do and apply it to what I really wanted to do. And that's the story of the manifestation formula. I really got serious about finding ways to change my life to achieve my goals in 2004. Yes, I'd been retired for a few years, but I had too many goals, too many ideas. I wasn't sure what to do, how to do it. I was blocked, I was confused, I was uncertain about so many things. So I eventually went to see a professional therapist who thought I had pretty, what he called, high-level issues compared to many of the people with more serious concerns, but they were still something that was blocking me. It was a brief tenure with the therapist, but he gave me some good pointers, and the first one that really made a difference was to read a couple of books by Wayne Dyer. The first one, Manifest Your Destiny, really was the turning point, or I should say the starting point, because I still have that book today. It's getting a little yellow. Pages are turned down. Lots of sentences are underlined. But it talked about how you can manifest your destiny. And Wayne Dyer has written many, many books on this topic. But he always gives credit to all the wise people going back thousands of years who came before them. His goal, which I've tried to implement, was to build upon what's already been achieved and discovered and find more ways to make it practical and useful for everybody. But Wayne Dyer and his books were just the start. There were books upon books. And one of the things that sort of pulled me in, but also sort of repelled me, was that everything was portrayed as being so simple. You know, manifesting made simple, just $17, order now. Wow, well, I would try that, and I did. And it was basically a lot of simplistic ideas. Then, a number of years ago, there was the very popular book and movie called The Secret. The Secret didn't really offer anything new, but it was friendly, personable, accessible, and certainly highly promoted. But I didn't really believe anything was a secret. I really saw it through my own research experience that things were probably not properly analyzed or taught. But The Secret was certainly a very sexy way of promoting a concept that had been around for 1,000 years. When I say I read lots of books, I read lots of books, like many people. Here's a picture I took back in August of 2008. I had already read 88 books, hundreds of blogs and articles, some CDs. I estimated at that time I'd read 12 million words or more. Then, of course, once I got into the Kindle and e-readers and reading on my tablet, there were countless more words. And now, November 2020, I don't know how many more millions of words I've read, but I've started manifesting. But I know now I will never stop learning. Now, I'm not dismissing everything I've read and learned and heard, because I think almost everything had some nugget of information, some gem of wisdom, but they all failed to take that extra step to transform it into something that was believable and something I could use with confidence. I wasn't thinking that I'm smarter than everybody, but I want to take what was out there and find a way to modify it, adapt it for me. Could I find some hook, some trigger that would really get my creative juices going and give me the confidence to believe in what I was doing? That was my goal, and that's why all my work resulted in one concept, not a whole philosophy, not a whole educational system. It's the manifestation formula, a simple, practical way that we can learn about what we're thinking and transform those thoughts through a very familiar process into a path to achieving our goals. Over the millions of words, there was one common message with relation to our thoughts. You are what you think. Your thoughts become your reality. You attract what you think about. All about the same thing. What we think is what we are. What we think is what we become. And it's like, that's it? I think, and then what? Now, in all fairness, there were lots of recommendations of the next steps to take, but that's where they all broke down. Whether I could visualize or journal or meditate, I didn't see the practical transformation of ideas into outcomes. When I started to document what I had been doing and learning, I had some fundamental questions. What are these manifestation principles that have been proven to really work, if any did at all? Where did they come from? And why are so many millions of people interested? And at the same time, why are so many people discouraged with all the things that have been written and taught about manifestation, the law of attraction, and positivity? And if these principles have been around for thousands of years, why are we still confused about them? Why aren't they part of our natural learning system? Several years ago, I started a local meetup group, the North Suburban Manifestation Group. And within a few weeks, I had over 100 people had joined. And I was surprised at the makeup of the group. There were people who worked as clerks in factories, but also social workers, attorneys, a couple of medical people, people just searching. And I was surprised. It was both a learning experience and a laboratory. But everybody had the same common duality. There's something I want to change, something I want to achieve, and I'm not finding a practical way to do it. Maybe if we talk together, we can learn something. I probably learned more than they did at the time because I knew what I was looking for, and they had hoped I had something to share. If I knew then what I know now, I probably could have been more helpful. Hopefully, my book and my program will reach some of those people. So I began to get my plan into organized. What do I need to learn? How will I learn it? Are there really some laws or rules or principles or practices that people were meant to learn? So, having been in communications and behavioral research for over 50 years, I knew I had to dig deeper. And I had that epiphany. I like to do summaries, something that is a guiding principle. And I finally understood why so much of what I'd read and heard was not working for me. First, I knew and I realized I couldn't succeed unless I can learn how to do what was being taught. Then I realized I really can't learn or would not learn unless I could believe in the benefits, in the usefulness of what program I was investigating. And third, I couldn't believe it unless I understood something about it. I personally just could not take things on faith. So all of my efforts in this program are to explain the principles in a way that is both believable and that I can understand. And have a pretty low bar for that. And hopefully that will connect with all of you people who listen to this or read the book. So here's the research plan I started with. You may be familiar with the term meta-research, plus original research. Meta-research is really a review of prior work that's been done in the past, things that are going on in the present. What can I learn from what's already been done? What concepts have been confirmed and generally accepted? Then I did the oldest form of research of all, observational. What can I learn just from carefully looking at what's going on around me? This is the origin of all scientific research. Ancient peoples looked up at the sky and formulated ideas about, is the Earth going around the sun, or the sun the center of the universe? So observation was the greatest laboratory, if you take the time to pay attention. Then there's my own personal experience I've re-examined, where I've been successful and where I failed. And although I never kept a diary or journal, there are certainly both very high and very low moments that I could recall that affected my decisions that I can now, after the fact, judge differently. And then, of course, there's my professional expertise. Over 50 years, thousands of studies about how people make decisions, how trends develop, how markets behave, how social conditions change, politics, economics, technology. All these different programs still had some common patterns of information and analysis. What can I learn from that? And one of the things I did discover for myself personally is that I'm not trying to achieve anything that has not already been achieved by others, within reason. I certainly would like to have been a professional NBA basketball player, but I wasn't tall enough, wasn't good enough. So, but within the realm of what are my capabilities and what are my interests, there's more than enough to satisfy any and all goals that I had. So building on all these other discoveries, my basic research objective was, can I move manifestation forward one more step? Although I read lots of books, my first research question was, who are the smartest people that I can believe? Are there people who have discovered relevant things about the power of thoughts, universal laws of manifestation, who have not only talked about it, but put it into practice? So I looked at 3,000 years of history of writers, philosophers, scientists, and teachers, and so many variations, and there certainly were consistent themes over the centuries. And I discovered there were many people who had been historical heroes, whether it's Einstein or Thoreau or Emerson or a Steve Jobs or a Bill Gates or a Warren Buffett, people who achieve things in many different fields. It could be athletes. It could be Michael Jordan, or it could be a great musician. Were there consistent patterns, consistent ideas of people who have achieved things that I felt were credible? There absolutely were lots and lots of people who I thought were credible and believable and who had demonstrated success about the power of thoughts and ideas and creativity. And the first thing I learned was the law of attraction is not a secret. It's been known for over 3,000 years. Lao Tzu, going back over 3,000 years ago, said it as well as anybody today. Watch your thoughts. They can become your destiny. Buddha, we are shaped by our thoughts. We become what we think. So over the past 3,000 years, countless books have been written. Countless teachers and philosophers have come out and talked about these very same concepts using different words in different ages. Huge businesses have been built on these simple ideas, which is the first thing that made me wonder, why are we still trying to reinvent this basic concept? So I keep talking about practical manifestation, practical transformation of ideas into outcomes. Here's just a couple of people who are universally known and recognized as being extraordinarily successful, and they probably never read or wrote a book about manifestation or the law of attraction. Einstein was an observational genius. He's known for doing these thought problems. And he said, the world as we have created it is a process of our thinking. It cannot be changed without our thinking. Well, the world can't be changed without our thinking. We ourselves cannot be changed without our thinking. A practical genius? Henry Ford, and there are many, many others. But Henry said it before anybody else did. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. There is no more succinct and profound observation than that one. But keep in mind, I can cite lots of philosophical geniuses about the power of transformative thoughts. It doesn't mean that they were successful in everything that they did. It doesn't mean that they were nice people, generally wise people. We're talking about one single issue. Can a person have a creative idea and through their thought process, the actions they take, transform that thought into a successful outcome? The answer is yes. But it doesn't mean that they are successful in everything that they do. And in fact, history shows that many creative geniuses were pretty miserable people in many other ways. But let's hope that that's not the issue. We all have relatively modest goals that we'll talk about later. But the point is, brilliant people had this observation about they believed in what they wanted, they pursued it, and even if that was their only focus, they achieved it. I've mentioned before about the whole history and all the people who have tried to popularize the ideas of manifestation, positive thinking, and the laws of success. Here's just a simple chronological presentation of books that have become relatively famous. Back well over 100 years ago, James Allen wrote As a Man Thinketh. Many people have heard and have read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking. Abraham Hicks books are very, very popular. Tony Robbins, the name of his book is really personifies the foundation of the system, unshakable belief. But most of his books are about more business and financial success. But from last I read, he's built a $5 million empire out of this positive belief system. Wayne Dyer, and of course, the fact that the secret was not really a secret, but certainly a very clever way of popularizing the idea that many people could benefit from. I'm a big fan of common sense observational research. So one of the things I did was to reassess people I've known and worked with over the past 50 years. And then, of course, there are all the celebrities that we encounter every day. And as I said before, I didn't want anything or to achieve something that's not already been done by somebody else. Because what I discovered is there are lots of simple observational, what I would call cause and effect evidence around us every day. For example, if a successful person gets up and receives their award and they're asked, how did they do it? How many times have you heard, an actor or an athlete or just a successful, coach of a team say, someone told them, a parent, a mentor, a grandparent, that they could achieve whatever they wanted if they wanted it bad enough. Why don't we believe that person? We may insist on strict scientific evidence, but for thousands of years, millions of people have said they believed in the power of what they wanted to achieve. And most importantly, many of them had a catalyst, a mentor, somebody who helped them believe in what they wanted to achieve. We may not all have had that, but there are other ways around that, which I'll cover later. So what I wanted to know then is, what did these people believe? How did they do it? And how are they different in how they pursued their goals than what I've been trying? The third stage in my research was to look at current science. There are countless books and blogs that claim all kinds of scientific support for metaphysics ideas, particularly the law of attraction. Probably quantum science or quantum physics is the most frequently cited. As I understand it, and to oversimplify, everything in the universe is made of the same fundamental energy, and energy contains information. This energy can be combined in infinite ways, which then comprises all known matter and energy, at least the ones that we can identify so far. And, of course, humans are made of the same energy containing information as everything else in the universe. So the big metaphysical question, is that if everything is made of energy, and that energy contains information, and which is not just our bodies, but the biochemical and electrochemical activity in our brains, do we have any control over the function of this energy in the form of our thoughts, emotions, or any other physiological-based output that we create? And if so, can we direct this energy in some way? I believe what many others have said, which is the answer is yes. We're just beginning to understand the nature of our energy interconnection with everything around us. And while we are waiting for a scientific way, I want to get back to observational research. People have thoughts. We see people transferring or transforming their thoughts into successful outcomes by their positivity, motivation, discipline, whatever you want to call it. We humans have a tendency to look at ourselves as separate from everything else in existence. Certainly, we don't have any particular awareness or feel for, the greater cosmic world or universe around us. But the reality is, as scientists have pointed out, humans are made of the very same original matter that was created at the beginning in the Big Bang. We're just one, let's call it, manifestation of the original nature and principles of the universe. So it stands to reason that if we are part of this great energy information grid or matrix, at some level we are having interactions with it. The question is, are we aware of it? Can we measure it? Can we manage it? Can we guide it? I think the consensus now is that, as we've discovered with 3,000 years of observation, that our thoughts have power over our choices and actions, and lots of our thoughts are readily transformed into our emotional feelings, our physical feelings, our choices, and our actions. There's lots more to discover here, but the evidence is out there if we choose to accept it without the traditional skepticism of absolute scientific proof positive. Basically, humans are just one form of the quantum laboratory. Perhaps we are one of the most sophisticated, but that also shows that we are one of the most rare combinations of energy and information that we've yet discovered in the universe. The other source of current scientific support for the metaphysics of our thoughts is in the area of psychological research about how people learn, absorb information, and apply it to their behavior. It's a shame it's taken so long. Over 3,000 years from the first observation is that our thoughts determine our character and our reality. And now it's become almost a standard part of psychological practices. There are two mainstream psychological practices today that directly connect to the original observations about the power of our thoughts. Change your thoughts, change your reality. Cognitive psychology has been around for 20 or 30 years. It's a well-accepted practice in helping people understand their thoughts, how to correct negative or incorrect thinking that influences their choices and their actions. Neuroplasticity, which is the popular name for neuro-linguistic programming, is more recent, but it's now understood that we can change the physiological workings of our thinking and its influence on our emotions. We learn how to rewire our brain. For a long time, it was thought that human personality and traits were set at an early age. It's now understood that nothing in our brain activity is permanent, but with understanding and techniques and the discipline to employ some of these practices, we can begin to physically change our thought processes. Neuroplasticity has had a lot of success in serious conditions, brain damage, where people have to relearn how to control their physical processes. And through that, we've learned that the practice of this training affects not just corrections from damage, but from the basic thought process itself. So once we learn more about how we are thinking about a specific issue or feeling, whether it's positive or negative, we can then know we can take actions that through persistence and training will enable that thought process to become a new habit more aligned with the way we want to think about the topic of those thoughts. And typically we're talking about, can we train our thoughts to be more supportive and positive towards achieving our goals? I look at the current environment for the manifestation formula as a convergence of metaphysics and quantum physics. Quantum physics is defined as discovering how things work at its most fundamental level. Metaphysics can be defined as discovering what things mean, the philosophy of whatever humans conceive of. Even though we're just discovering some of these concepts and we're getting the mathematical and science to support it, the reality is that the universe is estimated to be 14 billion years old, and everything that has ever been or will be created already exists in some form of energy or matter, and these two elements can be converted back and forth, as we well know. I believe that the formula for successful control of our thoughts or manifestation is just one small construct of our place in this cosmic information environment. The universe has been around for a long time. For centuries, we've been talking about God or some intelligence or other super form of awareness that guides us or reacts to what we wish or want or hope or pray for. But I don't think that's the way it works. If we are part of a universal matrix, then do our actions as a basis of our thoughts and emotions create a response somewhere else in this universal matrix. Even if we don't have the ultimate scientific proof, the anecdotal, the evidence in front of us is that it does work. We do transform thoughts into outcomes. Some people are doing it more successfully than others. And that's the essence of what we're talking about. How do the successful people do it? One aspect of all this wishing and wanting and praying was that so much of it was put in the context of, I'm going to do this, and somehow, at some time, some universal intelligence is going to take my order and deliver it. I don't think that's true at all. The universe is not Amazon. It doesn't take orders. Things are not on back order. As other people have written, especially Eckhart Tolle, has popularized the idea of now. We live in the now. We react in the now. The universe operates in the now. Now, our time frame is different from the universe in that we may have a thought, take actions, and the outcome is manifested sometime in the future. But everything along that path operates in its own independent now. Basically, we have to initiate it, sustain it, and believe it. The universe does not take our reservations for something in the future. The last section of this introduction is to take you through the conventional manifestation, law of attraction, positive thinking philosophies. We've been talking about, my interests, my concerns, my obstacles, but this is really where I did most of my research. I wanted to find out where there was information I could use and learn from, where I can make changes or modifications that would make a difference, and really to come up with an approach that would have a more universal application for the many ways we try to harness our thoughts into productive choices and actions. All of our manifestation concepts are about we're trying to achieve something. What do we want? I want things, you want things, everybody wants things. This chart has some of the more common goals and wants that are covered in the zillions of blogs and books that are out there. There seem to be three big categories of what's on everybody's wants list. I want an education, a new job, financial security, getting rich. The economics are probably the most highly popularized and overhyped want categories. I want to change how I live. Health and wellness has become a very large category. Everything from I want to live a healthier lifestyle, I want to lose weight, I want to live a more spiritual life, I want to break bad habits. So it's both physical, it's psychological, I want to reduce stress. And the third category is I want to change how I connect with other people. I want to have a better relationship with friends, family, and a work environment. I want to get more involved in organizations. And we all have multiple wants. They coexist, but ultimately we have priorities. But regardless of what your wants and wishes and hopes are, I believe they all follow the same basic process of I have a thought, I have an intention, I have a belief, I make choices, and I take actions. How do I construct that? How do I understand what I'm thinking about it? How do I measure it? And how do I find out where I'm going off track and what I need to correct? The manifestation formula is not just another book. You have a goal, you want something, there's a book for every conceivable idea. But the manifestation formula is not a book about how to get rich or how to lose weight or how to reduce stress. The manifestation formula is actually the common denominator in positive thinking. You have a specific goal. Make more money, lose weight. But that all starts with your attitude, your thinking, your motivation. You have to know what you're thinking before you know how to change the way you are thinking. So all these books, all these programs, all these practices are well intended and they may actually work for you. My objective is not to assess them or judge them. My intention with the manifestation formula is if you have a goal, you need to change your thinking. You need a companion. You need a supporting mechanism to help you pursue the specific goals listed in all the other programs. Okay, there are millions of books about how to lose weight, get rich, and reduce stress. There's an equally great number of books about the specific conventional techniques, such as the law of attraction, positive thinking, are probably the two most popular. The content of these books have been around in their current form for well over 100 years. Although the ideas originated thousands of years ago, in every age there are people promoting the ideas using the language and the morality and the conventional practices of the time. Two specific concepts represent most of the teachings, which is the law of attraction, which is you are what you think, and the power of positive thinking. In general, the law of attraction is a very attractive, simple statement. It says that things will come to you just by way of how you think about them. I agree with part of the concept, because what you attract is based on what you think, but it is not literally magnetic attracting things. So this is one category I think has been mischaracterized, in that we don't interact, we connect, we align, we match up with some corresponding resource in the universe that, as I've repeated over and over again, we know it works because we see it happening every day. So the manifestation formula is not about magical thinking. It's not about magnetic attraction. It's about a process. And I believe the word manifestation is a term that incorporates both identifying your goals and a process that you use to achieve them. Just as there's an extensive vocabulary of beliefs, intentions, and emotions, there's an equally large, let's call it industry, of tools to get what we want. These are all, I think, largely common sense approaches, but they all focus on how to, let's say, clear the mind, how to organize our thinking, how to engage in some type of systematic practice. These tools by themselves, I do not believe, accomplish your goal. But what they are, just as tools for building a house, they are a means to an end. If the goal is to clear your mind, focus your thoughts, empower your positivity, what techniques enable you to help organize and ideally rewire or retrain your thoughts? Journaling, keeping diaries, visualization of the goals is a very popular. Athletes use visualization. The baseball player, the golfer, visualize their swing, visualize where the ball is going or how they're going to hit the ball. It helps them train their mind, but it also influences their mind over body control. People have just lucky charms. The power of now, we've talked about. You have to be in the present. You can't just be thinking about the past or the future. There's to paraphrase a famous quote, the past is history, the future is a mystery, all you have is now. So the real purpose of all these tools is to help organize your mind, your thoughts, which then influences your choices and behaviors. But by themselves, they are not making the change, they are helping support your progress along the path of change. There are great conflicts in manifestation. That sounds like a pretty profound and ominous statement, but let me explain. After reading all of the books and listening to all the CDs, all the philosophies came down to focus on big conflicts in our thinking. I saw them as choices. Am I this way or am I that way? What it was really saying is that every person has a dominant way of thinking. It's our personality traits. And this is where I found most of my personal obstacles, where I had the most work to be done. Look at these simple lists. Do I think with my head or with my heart? Am I logical or do I rely more on instinct? Am I patient and work through things or do I want things right now? We are all a mix of all things, and different ones come out in different circumstances. Do I have doubt or do I have faith? Am I always complaining, or am I, as they recommend, showing gratitude? Am I confident, or am I not confident? But ultimately, the most basic human thought that overrides everything and actually encompasses all these other ones is the basic primal state of fear. Am I living in fear? Am I making decisions and taking actions based in fear? Or do I have no fear? I don't think it's really that simple. We all have fear. It's our almost our genetic survival instinct. But it's how we manage the fear, how we work around it. And just because we might think we have no fear does not mean you still don't have doubt or uncertainty. When I did my own self-assessment, I found, in trying to be honest, that most of my uh, traits of personality and how I pursued goals were all in the red. I was trying to be logical. I was wanted to get it done right now. I had uncertainty. Sometimes I lacked confidence. I wanted to control and micromanage things. Now, I might have had these characteristics, but generally it did not stop me from doing my jobs. I had to power through these emotional and negative self-talk obstacles. So, even though I generally succeeded, if these characteristics of the way I was thinking, the self-talk I had, made it more uncomfortable, more stressful. And I probably missed some opportunities, some risks I didn't take that could have achieved more successful outcomes or achieved them more quickly. I never kept a journal or chronicle of my life, but I can definitely point to several instances, both very successful and very not successful, where I made choices based on trying to be over analytical and believing, information would trump instinct. And I realize now, in retrospect, that was not always the case. I can actually recall some moments where the decisions turned out to be uh, less favorable than I expected. But when I made those decisions, I actually felt what I called a ping in my body, in my stomach. It's like something warning me. And I ignored it because the information I was receiving, either from reading or being in a meeting with like a financial advisor, convinced me that this was a rational decision. But I had a subconscious or instinctive feeling that something wasn't right, but I ignored it. A few situations where I encountered where I was unprepared for that particular moment, and a situation arose. I had to make a decision, and in effect, I just blurted out uh, what was on my mind, my proposal, my counter proposal, my objections, my recommendations, and those that just came from the heart, came from that this is what I have to say moment, those turned out to be extremely successful. So remember, we are all a combination of many types of emotional and personality traits, and the goal is not to try and uh, blame ourselves if we don't follow every instinct or push ourselves to do one more bit of research. We have to learn more about our nature, how we think, how we process information, and how that translates into the choices we make. We are all guilty of, after the fact assessments, but if we can train our way of thinking, we can develop new habits that enable us to be more conscious of the more subtle aspects of what is guiding our thinking and thus our choices. I've introduced you to or reminded you of all the teachings and books about how to achieve a goal, then all the books and teachings about uh, self-empowerment, change processes like positive thinking or the law of attraction. So there's lots of advice, but you know what? And this is what I found for me personally and many people I talked with. Most of the time, most of these programs don't work for people as quickly or successfully as they wanted or hoped for. So there are plenty of books and blogs, and here's just a sampling. And you can see the titles are all the same. The reasons why the law of attraction doesn't work. The reason why the law of attraction doesn't work. 4 reasons, 3 reasons, 5 reasons, 7 reasons. And as I went through all this research, I was no longer patient with people telling me what my goal should be, a practice that would ostensibly help me achieve that goal, then give me lists of all the reasons why it wasn't working. I wanted something that, like I said earlier, I could understand, I could believe in, and I could apply to real life situations. One of the most simplistic and profound concepts, again, came from Dr. Wayne Dyer, and he had a book by that, basically the title, You'll See It When You Believe It. So the issue is this. Do you first have to see something before you can believe in it? Or, as Wayne Dyer and many others have proposed, first you have to believe in whatever you're trying to achieve before you can see it. And this is a metaphorical see, that you have to believe you can do something before you can successfully embark on the process of achieving it. We're all looking for simplistic guides to personal change and transformation, and there's no shortage of information available. But fundamentally, and it's as Henry Ford quoted earlier, if you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. You decide what you think, and what you think is how you perceive the possible success in the future. So I've created my own summary analysis of why these wonderful concepts of the power of our thoughts and so on have not been as successful as the promises make them out to be. The concepts have been around for thousands of years. There is nonstop writing and philosophizing about these concepts, and yet we're still searching for a proven approach to employing these concepts. There is scientific evidence from quantum science about our interconnectedness with the universe. There are psychological practices such as cognitive learning, neuroplasticity, that says we can learn to change the way we think in a way that's more productive for what we want to achieve. And over the last 100 years, there has been a steady increase in the number of teachers, practitioners, books. The information revolution, by virtue of technology, has given everybody access to everything that's out there, and it's also unleashed many people, myself included, who believe they have a new perspective or a solution. So I'm not dismissing all the good information and teachings that are out there. I'm trying to assess, despite the wisdom that's often cited, why has there been such consistent and universal lack of success? Here's my short list that I think are applicable to what I can actually observe around me and based on the things I've tried. First, we have not actually been taught about these universal principles. We're given spiritual religious guidance, there's books out there, but there's no formal organization or teaching. Instead, there's more skepticism. What teachings there have been, I believe, have been taught incorrectly. It's like telling somebody to go build a house, go get a hammer, a power saw, other tools, but not really telling the people what a hammer is, how to use it, safety issues. We've been taught about a lot of the superficial concepts, but not really a true how-to guide to how to employ the tools. I think one of the longest running obstacles to our direct connection with whatever universal resources are out there has been that formal groups, ideologies, religions have tried to control the knowledge of our natural abilities with rules that are made by humans, reinterpreting or even distorting universal principles. And frankly, there's a lot of popular promotion, hyperbole, claims Of course, someone's going to say, my program's going to work for you. That's normal marketing and advertising. But there is so much with so many claims. I've tried to wind down that hyperbole to basically say, here's something based on universal, consistent observation. I've tried it myself. There's no fancy 3-year training program. There's no $1,000 solution. It's a simple practice. And last, and this is understandable, but also disappointing, there are just too many skeptics who say it's not been proven by science. Even though it's changing, even though we can sort of make the connection between metaphysics and quantum physics, some people still want traditional side-by-side control tests before and after, which really is not possible when we're dealing with human thoughts, emotions, and choices. Thus, after looking at all the skepticism, and I understand the desire for something proven, I came to the conclusion, as I mentioned earlier, we have the evidence all around us. We see people achieving their goals. We have people telling us, celebrities, business people, everyday people, athletes, people who've achieved an educational goal, made a lot of money, found the perfect partner, that they did it. And they had, either knowingly or just because it's their nature, they had a goal, they were persistent, and they had a belief that they could achieve the goal even though there might be obstacles. Everybody did not read a book about the law of attraction or manifestation. Some people seem to have a more natural ability or connection with the right way to do things and follow their head less than they follow their heart. They follow more reliance on instinct. They're a little more patient. They don't try to micromanage. Some people really know how to do that. That's the way they do things in general. As I said earlier, I was not that person. So everything I did probably turned out to be more difficult, but I've learned differently now. So this brings us to the end of part 1 of the introduction to the manifestation formula. All that I've shown you, all the research, was then the launching pad for the book that I've written and a specific approach that I've created, and the centerpiece is what I call the Thoughts Scorecard. The scorecard is a simple process for how to understand what you are thinking, do an honest self-assessment, and it then gives you instant feedback about where you are on this path to changing the critical balance between your positive and negative thinking. So then I entered the next stage with just a few big questions. I now believe that we do have some control over our thoughts and how it affects our life, but what are the limits to what we can do with our thoughts? And even though I talk about different personality types, are those capabilities, are those principles part of our DNA, and some of us have it and some of us don't? Or are these learned skills, or is it just a matter of luck? It's random, it's fate. So my goal is to take what I've learned, what others have recognized as being consistent components of what's called success, and update them to match what we know from the scientific standpoint, what we can do from observational research, and then of course I did it for my own personal goals. So I set out then to write my own laws about the power of our thoughts and how we can match them, align them to how we make choices and take actions to achieve our goals. Thanks for listening to this 1-hour presentation. The second part will now be a lot more straightforward, less philosophy, and more practical discussion of how the actual manifestation formula is created, how the thoughts scorecard works, and how you can use it to enter what I call the successful manifestation zone. We are always going to have both positive thoughts and negative thoughts. We can never stop that conversation we have with ourselves. But the ultimate determinant of success, I believe, is that we have to learn how to, and in many cases, retrain ourselves to make sure that our positive thoughts are not overwhelmed by the negative ones, because that is just too easily done too often for too many people, and it does not have to be that way. So thank you. Stay tuned for more.